Welcome to Communication on Command. My name is Paul, and today I want to speak to you about communication failures. Why communication fails. In a previous video I spoke about some of the reasons why communication fails and why a communication failure isn't necessarily your fault. And today in this video I just want to expand on that idea a little bit by telling you a story. This is a true story about me and communication failure. Okay, so just to briefly recap, in a previous video I spoke about the essence of communication coming from the thought that you have in your mind, which you then have to somehow transfer into words that you speak to somebody, and that person or people who you are speaking to have to then hear your words and understand your meaning. And I spoke about communication, or where communication starts to break down, which is at the point where you speak words. If you're interested in hearing a little bit more about this, I will post a link to the video below in the information for you to have a look at. But I just want to really reflect more on communication failures and really why a communication failure isn't your fault. Not all the time. Not all the time. Okay, so this is a true story, and this is a true story that happened to me. We're probably going back 7, 8, 9 years ago. I don't really remember exactly how long ago it was, but I do remember this incident very, very clearly and very, very vividly. And so what is this story? It's a story of communication disaster. Okay, it really is a story of communication disaster. So let me set the scene for you. This is a party, an event with lots and lots of people, and I don't know, I'm never at my best during parties, especially when there is lots of people, especially lots of people who I don't know. I'm not at my best in those situations, especially a social situation. Anyway, this particular party situation, it was going on quite late and I was getting quite tired. That is no excuse for what happened, but it's the truth. I was getting quite tired. My wife, on the other hand, she was really, really enjoying herself. She was engrossed in gossiping with her friends, chatting about this, that, whatever. So I didn't want to leave. Well, I did want to leave, but my wife was still enjoying herself. She wasn't ready to leave. So I basically, with my drink in my hand, I just found a nice, quiet space to be alone and to not communicate, because that was what I wanted. So if you can imagine me in a corner of a room, quite like this, it was a little bit darker, but I was there with my drink, really just not communicating. And I imagine my body language was actually giving off the signals that I didn't want to communicate. But that didn't stop one particular person. Now, I'd never met this person before, and I've never met this person since. And when I reflect on that, then that does make me feel not sad, and what's the word? It's not disappointed. I'm not sure what the exact word is for my emotion about this. Because I potentially missed an opportunity. I potentially missed getting to know somebody who potentially could have become important in my life. But that opportunity has gone. So I don't spend my time, worrying about this, but it is a missed opportunity. And I think with communication, okay, when we make communication errors, we are missing lots of opportunities. But it isn't always your fault, and sometimes it will be my fault, or the person you are trying to communicate with. So here's the scene. Okay, so I'm in a dark corner, in a room, in a house that's full of lots of people. I know some of the people, most of the people I don't know. I'm stood in the corner with my drink, my body language and everything about me is probably saying to most people, he doesn't want to communicate. But this one person came up to me and started to try and engage in conversation. And I don't know, what did I do? Well, I didn't really engage back, is the simple answer. I responded to every question, and there weren't many questions, but I responded to the questions with basically a yeah. I distinctly remember that throughout the whole conversation I didn't say one single understandable word or syllable. Everything that came from me in terms of verbal communication was grunts. Yeah. Yeah. Most of my communication came in shrugs. But that didn't stop this other person, this other man, from attempting to communicate, attempting to draw me into a conversation. I think back now because this is actually quite a funny situation to be in. So we're probably talking 3 or 4 questions in, and 3 or 4 responses from me being ugh, ugh. I didn't want to communicate. I was not in the right frame of mind for communicating with anybody. Probably. Certainly this gentleman who wanted to speak to me. So what this gentleman did basically, after 3 or 4 questions, was simply that. He made a noise which is just a this is a complete waste of time, isn't it? Turned around and walked off and left me in the corner of the room all alone with my drink, which at the time was exactly what I wanted. So what am I trying to say here? What is the story I'm trying to give you here? The story, the meaning of what I'm trying to explain to you is, you can only communicate effectively with somebody who is willing to engage you in communication. And so many of the people that I have worked with and helped over the years are looking for ways to turn that completely unengaged version of me in the corner, sipping my drink, wishing to be left alone, and to turn that person into somebody who is engaged in the conversation, engaged in the communication. Now, I know a lot of you watching this will have been on many different training courses perhaps, particularly if you are involved in any kind of sales. Okay, there are always sales courses all about communication and how to drag your prospects or these people into your communications and make them part of your sales funnel. I'm sure in a lot of cases that those techniques have a role to play, but not in communication. Those techniques are not communication skills, those are sales skills. And I think one of the skills of communication is knowing when to recognize that somebody is not in the right frame of mind to communicate. Okay? So that's the moral of the story. It's not really a moral, it's an idea. You cannot communicate with everybody all of the time in an effective way. Sometimes, and this can be in a sales situation, it can be in a situation with your friends, your work colleagues, your spouse, your children. Sometimes you have to just go, turn around and walk away. And that's the story I want to share with you today. That you can't, no matter how much training you do, no matter how many training courses you attend, no matter how many YouTube videos you watch about learning how to communicate, it's impossible to communicate with everybody all the time. Sometimes you have to walk away, turn around and walk away, and what's the saying? Live to fight another day. And I particularly want people in sales type jobs to pay attention to this, because there's nothing people hate more than a pushy salesman. And the pushy salesman just simply takes your inability to want to engage in a conversation as a challenge. Whereas in completely different circumstances, on a different day, different circumstances, when I'm not tired, when I've not had, I don't know, an argument with my boss at work, when my children haven't, just been rushed into hospital, I will be better equipped to engage in your communication. Walking away from communication is not a sign of defeat, it's not a sign of weakness. In my view, it's a sign of maturity. It's a sign that you are a mature communicator and you know when to stop. So, that is today's video. I hope you've enjoyed just this little story, this little true story about me and a communication failure. Thankfully, I was not the communicator failing, I was the communicatee who failed to engage. But believe me, I have found myself in many, many situations in the past where my ability to communicate with the people that I want to communicate with has failed. And the one lesson that I have learned from life is that if your ability to communicate with the people at that point in time is failing, then stop. Return to it at another time and you'll probably find the communication is much more effective. Okay. Now there are many, many ways, and this will be another video in the future where we'll go into how to end a communication that isn't working for you. I'm not engaging or I'm just not understanding. I'm going to talk about how to end a conversation, a communication, in a good way that will allow you to come back at another time, another date, another situation, and start again. Right, that's it for today. See you again soon.